In today's episode, we are going to talk about the USPS, so the United States Postal Service, postmark rule. They recently made a change, and I've been seeing people talk about how it will affect you paying bills, how it could potentially affect voting and people getting ballots in on time.
Welcome to the Tax Relief with Timalyn Bowens podcast. Are you behind on taxes? Is the IRS threatening you or your business? Are you overwhelmed and confused about how to resolve your tax issues? Let's join Timalyn as she explains your options and how she may be able to help. Timalyn Bowens is America's favorite EA.
Hey, family. Welcome to episode 75 of the Tax Relief with Timalyn Bowens podcast, and Happy New Year. In today's episode, we are going to talk about the USPS, so the United States Postal Service, postmark rule. They recently made a change, and I've been seeing people talk about how it will affect you paying bills, how it could potentially affect voting and people getting ballots in on time. But of course, me and the way my brain works, being America's favorite EA, the first thing I thought about was, what about taxes? How is this going to affect people who are in communication with the IRS and trying to fulfill their legal tax obligations? The second thing I thought about was you as the taxpayer. If you're not informed about this rule and the changes that were made, this could end up being a disservice to you. So let's get right to it with what the postmark rule is. The postmark reflects the date that the mail was received. So I remember growing up, my dad was one of those people who waited to the last minute to do his taxes. And on April 15th, we would be at the post office in line at almost midnight because he had to get that envelope stamped that said April 15th so his taxes would be on time, right? Well, that's the old rule now. What happened was, effective December 24th of 2025, so Christmas Eve, just last week, the postmark rule was changed so that mail will no longer be stamped to show the date that it was deposited in the mailbox or even dropped off inside of the post office. Now, with the new rule and update, the date that will be postmarked is the first automated processing. So if we think about this, that could end up being problematic because let's say that you drop something in the mailbox and it sits there for a day. Then in addition to that day, it's kind of sorted but not stamped yet until it actually makes it to the first automated processing. That means there could be a day, even 2 or 3, between the time that you actually dropped it off and when it gets stamped. Now, how does this affect you for tax purposes? Well, if we look at the example that I gave with my dad, this new rule would mean even if he waited in line until April 15th to drop that off, if he did not actually go to someone who was working in the post office that could stamp it right at that moment, his tax return would have ended up being received as late because it would not have a postmark stamp of April 15th. It wouldn't be stamped until the envelope reached the automated processing. I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm getting tongue-tied on that. But this is going to have a huge impact on us in this coming season. Now, while the IRS is pushing, and they've pushed for years now, people to e-file their tax returns, there are some situations where things have to be mailed. If we are looking, for example, The people I'm working with and we're responding to notices, if we're not calling the IRS and you have representation, such as someone like myself who's calling on your behalf and who's able to fax over the information that the IRS is requesting, you probably have to respond by a certain date. If you're not able to use the new online upload tools, this USPS postmark rule will affect you because if you have to respond to a notice, that needs to be done in a timely manner. You want to make sure that you have it postmarked by the deadline. But now with this postmark rule, you will want to get it sent a little bit earlier. Now, I have a rule of thumb in my firm Bowen's Tax Solutions. When anything is mailed to the IRS, that you make sure that you are sending it certified. I want you to make that a rule of thumb for you as well, but I know not everyone does. That is one way that you can protect yourself because one, we're going to have it postmarked on the date that you actually drop it off because you're going to have the certified receipt and it's going to be stamped with the date that you drop it off, right? Number two, if you have a certified mail receipt, you also have a tracking number. So if the IRS says, hey, you never sent this, we don't have it, it's late, you can actually pull up your tracking number and say, hey, you guys actually received it on this date at this time. Would you like for me to resend it? Now, one of two things can happen in that situation. I've had the revenue agent that I'm talking to say, oh, wait, we found it. And it's like, no, you didn't. Either you saw it and you were giving me the runaround, or you're just going to accept this now because I have proof that it was sent. Because when I'm on the phone with a revenue agent, anywhere, anyone across the country could answer. And that's why I'm saying that, not being snarky or anything, but they didn't just magically find it if they didn't find it at first. But even if they don't find it and we have to resend it, that tracking number protects us because it shows that we did what we were supposed to do when we were supposed to do it. And it's not any negligence of our own that the IRS can't find it. Okay. Now, this is important for the IRS, but if you're also communicating with a state or local Department of Revenue or tax agency, this postmark rule could affect you there as well. For example, I live in Louisville, Kentucky. They push for taxpayers to use the eMint system, which is just electronically filing the Metro income tax, right? But there are still people who mail in those forms. Louisville charges a $25 late fee, whether you owed tax or not. If your return is not postmarked by the due date, you could end up facing this penalty. So, let's say that you're my dad, right? You're that person that waits to the last minute and you're like, you know what? I'm going to go in the post office. I'm just going to drop it in the slot. Your mail, because of this new postmark rule, may not actually get stamped until April 16th or even 17th, even though you dropped it in on the 15th. Okay? So, again, rule of thumb, Bowen's Tax Solutions, always use certified mail. Now, if you want to be fancier, you do registered mail just so you have the proof. Cool. To make sure it's stamped. I like the certified because I want that tracking number as well, right? And because I work in representation, I'm not sure why, but when I've talked to revenue agents and they say they can't find something, when a client has mailed it first class, that receipt and tracking number hasn't held up as proof. However, the certified receipt does. So I always tell my clients, hey, make sure you have the green certified receipt. Okay. If for whatever reason you don't want to listen to me, but you still want to avoid the problem, you can always go buy the postage at the counter, because when the mail clerk prints off your label, it will have the date that you purchased, which hopefully is before the deadline, on the mail that you're sending. Okay? So again, with that, you want to go to the counter so you make sure it gets stamped before it gets sent back for processing. This is going to affect taxpayers who are dealing with issues with the IRS. This is going to affect taxpayers who aren't currently dealing with issues with the IRS. If you meet the exception to yet be able to mail in payments, same thing applies. I would not send in a payment without sending it certified. Granted, you'll know if the IRS received it or not because they will cash your check, but I would want to be able to track the money that I'm sending to the IRS. You want to make sure if you're sending in payment, you also take into consideration this new postmark rule. Because why make a payment, then get a bill with interest or a little bit of a failure to pay penalty because it says they didn't receive the payment on time? That's annoying and unnecessary, and more of an unnecessary administrative cost, right? So if you are mailing something to the IRS, you want to make sure that you have whatever it is in a few days early, right? Just to make sure that you're postmarked in time. If you have the option, use whatever digital filing options are available to you. If it's at 1040, make sure it gets e-filed unless there's some type of e-file rejection where you have to mail it. Same thing with the state. You want to make sure that, and I understand, you want to hold your money as long as you have to because you don't want to pay them more than necessary. But if it's the state, why are you mailing in the return? E-file it just like the federal. And same thing as I use the example with me here in Louisville. If you have to file something with the city, don't mail it if you don't have to. Go ahead and take the time to create that online account to submit your information. Go ahead and submit your payments online. Make sure that you are using credible sites to send those payments, because there have been sites that weren't as reputable that would accept payments on behalf of the IRS, but there was a gap in the time from when you made the payment and when they actually sent it to the IRS, and you as the taxpayer have to deal with any interest or penalties that are caused by that gap. So if it's the IRS, go to irs.gov, log into your account, pay directly from your bank account. If needed, you can pay with a credit or debit card, but just make sure that it's on time. Okay? And again, you're not tech savvy. There are things that happen where you absolutely have to mail the return. Make sure that you're getting the manual postmark so you have it dated by the appropriate time, or you can use certified mail. All right. Now, not to put a damper on your tax season, but I hope that you found this episode to be informing. I also hope and wish you the very best in 2026. Have an amazing tax season, and make sure that you're tuned in 2 weeks from now for episode 76 as we start talking in more detail about this one big beautiful bill and the changes that it's going to make for this tax year, not tax season, but the 2026 tax year. All right? Make sure you like the episode and you share it with a friend. I'll see you guys next time. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen today. I'd like to thank Jim Ray Consulting Services for helping me get this message out to you. I hope you found the information helpful. Did you know 1 in 50 people have a tax problem? Please share this episode with your friends and family because you never know who may need help. Again, thanks for listening. Hey, just as a reminder, this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It provides a framework and possible solutions for solving your tax problems, but it is not legally binding. Please consult your tax professional regarding your specific tax situation.